post it to our YouTube page, which is MCCC Funeral Service, and I'll make it viewable. So if you want to go back and watch any of it, and I'll put in the links, all the materials that I'm gonna put up to you guys. So Jean, let me have you start off. I'm gonna start posting links into the chat.
Hi, everyone. My name's Janine Rosenberger. I'm the department specialist for the Business and Technology and Program Studies division. But I work for the division, but I do focus on the funeral service as well. So if you have any questions down the line, you could always reach out to me via email. Was probably the best way to get in touch with me. And I just see, though, that for this meeting, I just see, based on who RSVP'd, just one person's missing.
Okay, they might pop in, give me 1 second here while I'm trying to get these links. Oh, there it goes. All right, good. Yeah, and so any questions that you have, like, Janine handles like everything, and this is one of those deals, getting registered for classes and all that stuff. Hold on, I was waiting for this thing to.
I also want to mention, when you do email me, use your Mercer County Community College email account. Because all correspondence would be going through that account. If you don't have access to it and you have trouble getting into your email account, contact IT Help Desk.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and everything goes to that email by default. Even if you use that as just a forwarding email, that's perfectly fine to do so. It's just I'm sure this link is copied. It's just by default, like I said, that's where everything goes. Oh, copy link. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm putting up all of the stuff that we'll be dealing with today. I moved it all to a Google Drive so that it's just, again, easier to this thing set was not ideal. There we go. It's just easier to share it with you guys. And like I said, I am going to put all of this into the YouTube video as well. Oh, no, handbook, get link, copy link. I don't know why they make it a two-step process, but this is all stuff like back before 2020, we would have you come into the school and then we'd just hand you all the stuff. Now the whole world is going digital on us. So I only have another one here to put up, and then we can get the show on the road. Link. All right. So as we go through, you'll see that this is all stuff we're going to cover. That last thing I put up is actually the notes, the slides that we'll be covering. And like I said, by default, I mute everyone just so we don't have all the noise in the background. But if you have questions at any point, feel free to unmute yourself and hop in and just, ask away. But there it is, share screen button. All right. Just wait for this to start up. All right, so funeral service orientation, everything everyone to know about the program, a bunch of stuff you probably didn't want to know. All right, so some basics about the program. Full-time, normally the program takes 2 semesters. And if you're doing the day classes, we're here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Normally, and again, I'm ballparking, this changes by day, but normally like 10:30 till 3. If you're in lab or field experience on Wednesdays, it goes a little bit later in the afternoon. And then the spring rather, excuse me, is very similar. Now, and part-time in the evening, this can take anywhere between 1 and 2.5 years, depending on how many classes you want to take per semester. All of the classes are blended or hybrid, meaning that what used to be a 3-hour class is now just an hour and a half. What we do is we take half of the material and we post it to Blackboard, and there's modules that you can do. I know we've updated a lot of this over the years. We've been teaching like this for approximately 10 years. And I know in my classes, I've been adding videos and stuff like that to the units that are done online. So it's almost like we cover all that material, but you just do that half of that class on your own. Like I said, what used to be a 3-hour class is now just an hour and a half. So same thing's true with the part-time and the evening classes. Like I said, those classes used to be 3 hours. Like you'd have one class from 6 to 9. Now it's like one class would be 6 to 7:20, and if you have second class on that night, it would be from 7:30 to roughly 9 p.m., like 8:50. So again, we do have a program that if started in the spring, you can do, it can be completed in 1 year. I know most of you guys are starting at least taking at least 1 or 2 funeral service classes in the fall. But if you are in the evening classes or if you don't have an internship yet, you can really ratchet it up in the spring semester. So now things are supposed to be back to normal after the debacle that has been this pandemic for the last 2.5 years. The classes were initially distance, everything was like this, but because things are reverting back, we'll be back to quote unquote normal when we get to the fall. It has changed the way that we do things, in that I know a lot of the staff often work from home. They may work on campus 1 or 2, maybe like 3 days a week, and at home like 1 or 2 days a week. Janine, what are you doing now? What days are you on campus and what days are you at home? Oh, I think I lost her.
I don't have a study schedule.
I got it.
Yeah, I don't really have a study schedule. I'm remote today because I had COVID, but
Yeah. How are you feeling, by the way?
better. But yeah, I'll probably be in the rest of the week and the following week as well. But yeah, I don't have a real study schedule right now.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it to their attention that, again, prior to 2020, everybody was there all the time. And now it's a little bit different. There may be days where people are not there. But again, like I said, it's one of those situations where, if in doubt, the best way to get a hold of everyone's via email. Now, the full-time day schedule, and again, I just didn't feel like getting new because what I had to do was take screenshots and then put them in. I just didn't feel like changing it. Schedule's exactly the same. I was just lazy. I was looking at it earlier today. I was like, I don't feel like just updating. You get the point. It's fall 2022, spring 2023. So if you are doing the full-time day schedule, it's Monday 12 to 3, roughly, and 12 to 2:55. Then Wednesdays is the longer day, bombing 1 at 10:30, and then everybody meets from 1 to 2 in seminar. And then at 2 o'clock, we split, and half the class goes to lab, half the class stays and does field experience. And then in the spring semester, we switch that. But like I said, everybody's at seminar from 1 to 2. And seminars, when we talk about everything that's outside the pale, or outside the curriculum, I should say, as far as funeral service is concerned. We have a lot of guest speakers. We do a lot of things to fill in the gaps there that are not directly covered in the funeral service curriculum. And then Friday is 9 to noon. Spring schedule, very similar, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And again, similar times on that. We'll talk about this. If you're on the full-time, we'll talk about this when we get to the spring. There's on Monday, for example, there's principles of micro from 12 to 1:20, and then at 1:30 is embalming 2. Embalming 2 is a 10-week course, and we had to lie to the computer system because they normally don't want you to start a 10-week course at the beginning of the semester. The idea is for people who missed signing up in time, this would be something they could take in the last 10 weeks. So we lie to the computer system, say, yeah, it's a full 14 weeks, but it's not. It's 10 weeks. And when that ends, this class NBE review picks up. This is a 2-credit class. NBE review is a 1-credit class. So it works out in total of 3 credits. It's NBE review is the only elective in the program. Something I really highly recommend taking. It helps prep you for that national board exam and just is a nice capstone. But that's something we'll talk about in the spring if you're doing the full-time day program. Wednesdays, again, run a little bit later. And then there's this class, laws, rules, and regulations. This can be taken either, again, if you're doing it full-time, this can either be taken in the winter session which is 4 days. I haven't set the dates for it yet. It's normally right after New Year's, whatever the first, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Monday is, and we just knock it out real fast in 4 days. It's a 1-credit course, and you'll be taking that style, and that runs roughly, like in those 4 days, we're in class like from like either 9:30 or 10 till about 2, which we take a break for lunch. But we're going to be taking the last 6 weeks in spring in the evening, and that's last 7 weeks, excuse me. And that's something you can make that decision later on. And then Friday is again, 10 to about 3. There we go. So looking at the evening courses, if you are looking at the evening based, they've got to look prereqs on and all that good stuff. Monday and Thursday, and you're looking at micro and intro. Then, and again, I jump over it this way here, and that's when, like I said, in spring, and again, I just didn't update it because I didn't feel like getting the newer pictures of it, and it's just time consuming. In spring, it would be, again, if you're following this path, it'd be, 6 to 9 on Monday, 6 to 9 on Tuesday. And then by the summer, you have to have an internship in place because that's when you take lab field experience, and then wrapping up in the fall. So the Funeral Service Program Handbook is one of the things that I uploaded there. Is basically everything you ever want to know about the program. There's 3 different degrees. There's prep degree, which is an associate's in business. And this, again, I don't think we do a real great job of explaining this on our website, but you guys are past the prep degree. It's not something you should be looking at. It's the prep degree is to get the initial 60 credits required by New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And if you already have the 60, then you don't need to worry about it. And then the Funeral Service Certificate, this is what you need to get licensed in your state, unless you're in Delaware. And Delaware is different. Delaware requires the associate in funeral service. So I'll sort of unbundle this in a bit. Everybody takes the same classes with us. It's just what can we pull from your academic background to see that you get both the certificate and the AAS in funeral service. If you have all the prerequisites, plus either a degree ahead of time, to satisfy the college success and wellness or HPE health and phys ed requirement, a math class and a humanities or global studies, which is a lot of times like a language or certain history classes or ethics or philosophy. A lot of these will fill that requirement. Then you would get both the certificate and the associate degree. If you already have a degree, you really don't need the associate, but it's just an extra degree to hang on the wall. It doesn't cost you anything more or anything like that. Like I said, it's just what can we pull from your academic background. So New Jersey and PA requirements, both require those 60 college credits prior to funeral service education. They generally don't care what you've studied, just so long as those 60 college credits exist. So this is something that is proved outside of us. We always ask for it and make sure that it exists, but it's not something that we're involved with getting that verification done. The Department of Education proves that this has been completed. So ultimately, if you're in Pennsylvania, you'll have to get a pre-professional educational certificate. And I put information up about both these states in those links. And then New Jersey issues an academic qualifying certificate. Now, here's where it gets wonky. They give it 2 names. If you talk to the Department of Education, they'll call it an academic qualifying certificate. If you talk to the State Board of Mortuary Science, they'll call it a mortuary qualifying certificate, an AQC or an MQC. It's the classic state of New Jersey thing. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. So don't get freaked out if you hear 2 different names on it. This has to be completed, and do this right away. This can take months for them to complete it. And you can do everything else except for the practical exam. I've had this happen to students because we don't see it. We don't get a verification of it. Now, normally you wouldn't either. In the last year, they have started sending a verification to the individual student when this has been issued. But traditionally, they didn't issue anything to the student. They just sent a voucher over to the State Board of Mortuary Science or the State Board of Funeral Directors if you're in Pennsylvania, going, yes, they have the 60 credits, they're good to go. Now, because I had a student in this situation a couple of years back where she had completed everything. She had done the program, she had done the national board exam, she had done the jurisprudence exam, she completed 75, 75, and 25. All she needed was that practical exam, but she could not schedule it because she never filed for the MQC, and it held her up months. I mean, and it's a terrible thing to see. So this is something to put on your to-do list to just get it knocked out, and you can just move on with life and not worry about it. Now, if you're in New Jersey, this also has an impact on your internship as far as how long the internship is. By default, the internship is 2 years, right? But If you have 90 or more credits prior to funeral service education, then they will drop that minimum requirement down to 1 year. So you could finish within, if you're done all your schooling and all your tests, you can get licensed after starting the internship and only serving 1 year, so long as you have everything done. And it doesn't have to be on the year marker part, like 1 year or 2 years. If it's 12 months or 13 months or 14 months, whatever, it's fine. But this is how they prove that, and this is how they make that adjustment to your internship. So again, just pointing out, this is your responsibility, and this is completely independent of Mercer. It's nothing we have anything to do with. So the prerequisites, again, I believe I've met with most of you individually. Always double check to make sure these are through, and if you've sent transcripts, give it a couple of weeks, but then check your Mercer transcript to make sure that they're on there. You don't want to get into a situation where you're going to wrap everything up and have your transcript sent off to the state board and doesn't list you as a graduate because one of these transcripts has not transferred, or whatever the case may be. So it's English 1 and 2, psychology, business law, accounting, chemistry, and then either human anatomy, which is a Mercer course, that's Bio 106, or anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. If you're not sure, reach out to me about them and I can double check. I've got files on everybody that I just go through, and it's a Word document. I probably showed most of you guys who met with me. It's bring it up, put your name on it, get the prereqs and whatnot. So New Jersey licensing requirements, so things outside of the school. There's the educational requirements, meaning that 60 credits prior to funeral service education, plus an internship. And the internship, like I said, is anywhere between 1 and 3 years, depending on your educational background and how long it takes for you to finish everything, and then the licensing exams. So the internship, like I said, is by default, it's 2 years, but it can be done concurrently with schooling. So like when I went through the program, I was doing the internship while I was in school, and when I got done school, like I finished in May, and I think I got licensed in August of that year. You can take up to 3 years if necessary, and during that time you have to send in monthly reports to the State Board of Mortuary Science, and again, this is outside of us. You have to do 75 funerals, 75 embalmings, and 25 sets of funeral arrangements. So all of that has to be done by the end of the internship. With the testing, there's the national board exam. And as soon as you're done with all of the schooling, right, hand in your last paper or last test, whatever it is, right, you reach out to me. I have a very long email that I'll send to you explaining everything, but I'll need to get your social security number, and then I send it off to a group called the Conference, who is based out of Arkansas. Again, has nothing to do with us. You need it for licensure, but they will clear you to take that national right away as soon as you're done the schooling. And the same is true of the jurisprudence exam. You don't have to have the 75, 75, and 25 done before you sit for the jurisprudence exam or the national board exam. They really don't care about those at that point. So the national, you schedule on your own. It's given at Pearson View testing centers, and they're scattered all throughout the states and through Pennsylvania and through Delaware as well. So you schedule that. It's 2 separate sides, the arts and the sciences. You can take them on separate days if you choose to, which I think is a good idea. Then it's done on a computer. You know right away as soon as you hit that enter button whether you passed or failed it, and they tell you immediately. It's nerve-wracking, I'm sure, to hit that button. Then there's New Jersey jurisprudence exam. That's a written test. It's given 3 times a year. It's given at Mercer. Again, it has nothing to do with the program. It's just we are geographically centered in the state. So the school has a contract with the State Board of Mortuary Science. So they give it 3 times a year at the testing center. Whenever you complete the program, there's an offering of it shortly thereafter. It's given in July, October, and February. And that's something, like I said, as soon as you're done all your schooling, I just send an email off to Cindy at the state, and she puts you on the list and sends an application out to you. Then there's that practical exam. That's when they come out and watch you embalm somebody, and that everything has to be done. You have to be done the schooling, you have to be done the national, you have to be done the jurisprudence exam, you have to be done the 75, 75, and 25, and be within 3 months of completing the internship. So with PA, with the educational requirements, plus the internship and exams. Now, the resident internship is what you will do following schooling. So this is a 12-month period following funeral service education. You have to be done with us, and then there's a separate application to send in, and you start this 12-month period. During this time, you have to do 35 what they call case histories, and they've created a new form for this. You can do it all on the state's website. You go and you fill out, I did the arrangements and the embalming and directed the funeral for John Smith on, August the 15th or whatever it is. And you have to do 35 of them during that year. Now, while you're in school, you register, and here again, there's Pennsylvania going, given two names to something, the student/funeral trainee. Sometimes they call it a student trainee, sometimes they call it a funeral trainee. Pennsylvania is very odd with this stuff. So this is what you register for while you're in school. And the odd thing about this is you register through Mercer. You have to have a funeral home to do this, to register, but there's an application where you fill out a portion of it and I fill out a portion of it, and we send it into the state board, and then they make you a student/funeral trainee. As soon as you are registered as a funeral trainee, you are legally allowed to take part in embalmings. And here's where it gets weird. Because if you call the state board, funeral directors in PA, they're a really notoriously bad state board. If you ask them, oh, am I allowed to embalm? They'll tell you, no, you can't. You can only embalm at the school. And it doesn't make any sense. So a couple of years ago, we reached out to the Pennsylvania State's Attorney General's office, and we had them review it. And they said, yeah, absolutely, you can embalm the funeral. There's absolutely no reason you couldn't. If you are in PA and if your preceptor is concerned at all, just reach out to me. I can send you a copy of the letter. It's like I said, it's from the top of the top in PA, and they verified it for us. So in the testing, similar to New Jersey, that national board exam, there's a PA jurisprudence exam, which again, just all the laws of the state of Pennsylvania. And again, as soon as you're done schooling, you can register for that. And that's given constantly. That's something like when I was registered, I was licensed in PA, and I took it at an airport in Bluebell, and I'm going back 20 years, but yeah, it's something that you schedule on your own. Then there's written practical exams. So instead of like New Jersey, where they come out and they watch you embalm someone, there's a written practical exam, something you schedule on your own as well. They just revamped this test. And from what my understanding is, there's a lot of information from the embalming 2 class. And that's something we'll talk about when we're in embalming 2. But it's given around throughout the year. So it's not just like New Jersey, where it's like 3 times a year at that jurisprudence exam. And, you can schedule these tests at any point. So Delaware, I'm not sure if anybody is in here who's in Delaware, but you have to, Delaware is another odd one. The applicant must attend an ABFSA accredited school or college and receive an associate degree in mortuary science. And they don't care if you already have a degree in something else. If you have a master's degree in something else, they don't care. You have to have that associate degree in mortuary science. And what is also strange about Pennsylvania is, I'm going to read this one off to here, or Delaware, excuse me. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to prevent the practice of funeral services by any student of an accredited school or college of funeral services under the personal supervision of a licensed funeral director in the state. So what that means is, like in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, you have to register as an intern or a student/funeral trainee to be able to embalm at the funeral home. Delaware just goes, well, if you're in a school, it's ABFSA accredited, fine. Just go ahead and you can embalm all you want at the funeral home. So it's one of those just odd things that's unique to Delaware. After you've done schooling, there's another year-long resident internship, and you have to do 25 embalming reports and 4 quarterly working reports during that time. You basically just need to get 25 cases in over that year. Then with the testing, there's a national board exam, which again, everybody is subject to. And then there's the Delaware jurisprudence exam. And this is administered by the conference. The same people that write the national board exam write this exam as well. But again, that can be taken at testing centers, and it's something that as soon as you're done schooling, you can sit for it. I think Delaware and Pennsylvania's JP exams are pretty straightforward. New Jersey is much more involved because New Jersey has such a larger, more involved set of rules, regulations, and laws. If you look at Delaware and Pennsylvania, they're both like 30 pages or something, whereas New Jersey is like 180. Like they really overregulate everything in New Jersey. All right, so the question. So we always bring these things up. You never want to, we don't want somebody to get started and not realize this is a requirement. All 3 states ask you these or something similar to this. This is specifically for New Jersey. So in child support, please certify under penalty of perjury the following. Do you currently have a child support obligation? Have you failed to respond to a subpoena relating to either paternity or child support proceeding? Are you the subject of child support related arrest warrant in accordance with NJSA, blah, blah, blah. And answer yes to any of these questions may result in the denial of licensure. Furthermore, any false certification of the above may subject you to a penalty, including but not limited to immediate revocation or suspension of license or certification. This goes on. Have you ever, a little thing down, say, ever been summoned, arrested, taken into custody, indicted, tried, charged with, admitted into pretrial detention, pled guilty to any violation of law, ordinance, felony, misdemeanor, disorderly persons offense in New Jersey or any other state, District of Columbia, or any other jurisdiction? Parking or speeding violations they don't care about, but like a DUI they do. And it goes on. Have you ever been convicted of any crime or offense under any circumstances, included, limited to a plea of guilty, no fault, no contendarity, a no contest, or a finding of guilt by a judge or jury? If yes, provide a copy of the judgment. Do you and they go, it goes on. Do you currently hold or have you ever held a professional or occupational license or certificate of any kind in New Jersey or any other state, including DC? You have to explain that to them. So if that's the case, if you have some sort of a blemish in your record, you have to admit that to them. Like, we don't find out about it. It's none of our business, but you have to admit that to the state. And it happens, right? People get popped for dumb things. When I was in college, I got a disorderly conduct. My roommate, Sean O'Donnell, I just saw Sean over the weekend. We were 19, went to a party, we got drunk, and we ended up getting picked up for it. It amounted to basically a ticket. But what I had to give them all the paperwork on this, and that happened in 1996, but still they don't care. So we mentioned this again. I don't know what anybody's background is. I have heard some weird stories over the years. I had one student who sat down with me after class and said, look, I want to talk to you about this. I'm a little concerned. I was like, what's going on? He said, well, I used to be a teacher. I was like, oh, this is not starting out well. And he ended up having an affair, I'll say, with a student. Now, it was a senior in high school, so she was over 18, but that doesn't make it any better, And as soon as he left, I Googled his name, saw the news reports. I was like, there's no way this guy is going, no way it's going to happen. But he gave everything to the state board. He was honest about it. He actually went before them and made a very passionate plea that what am I supposed to do? I served my time, as it was, and I ended up, what am I supposed to do? Spend the rest of my life working in a liquor store? And they saw it his way, and they said, yeah, and they granted him a license. I had another student who came in and said that she was involved in a double homicide. That one blew me away. I mean, I was like, whoa. That was a weird story. She actually left the thing. I was interested to see what was going to happen with that one, because it was sort of an extenuating circumstance, but whatever. We had a student before. Here's the thing, though. If you don't admit it and later on they find out about it, like let's say you're licensed 10 years and your competitor finds out that you, I don't know, kind of DUI or got arrested for having a joint or something, like when you were like 22, if they go to the board and the board finds out that you weren't honest with them initially, they will come after you and they will void your license without question. It'll be gone. They'll say, no, that's absolutely fraud by omission is what they would call that. There was a student for 2 or 3 years before I took over as program director who had they wrote him up as like what do you call it, like a sex crime, and he had to register as a sexual offender. And what it was he was in college, he got liquored up and he went streaking somewhere, like, and whoever was the DA was or whatever really threw the book at him. It was some dumb college prank, and they made him register as a sex offender. He was very embarrassed by that, so he left it off everything, and the state board found out about it, and they told him, no, you'll never get licensed in the state. And he was halfway through the program, and they're like, boom, just no, you're done, like forget it. So we mentioned this to you, just if there is something, just be honest with the state when you're registering. All right, so funeral service program policies, and this is a lot of the stuff you're going to find in that funeral service handbook. So all grades have to be a C or above, and our minimum grade for a C is 75. Like most, if you take like a history class or something like that, you can get like a 72, and that's still considered a C. With all the funeral service classes, it is 75 is the absolute minimum. And again, I hope this doesn't impact anybody. Repeating courses, hopefully you guys won't have to repeat any courses. You can repeat a course twice without question. If you have to go for the third time, you have to get departmental permission to do so, which means you have to go in front of the dean and explain why. And the dean now is I haven't seen her in this situation, but I think she's a little more laid back. Back when Dr. Maddox was there, man, he was tough. He was real tough on situations like this. His father was funeral director, so he took this program very, very seriously. Incomplete grades. There are certain classes, lab and field experience, where we frequently have incomplete grades because these classes have clinical work that has to be done at the funeral home. you have to do so many embalmings and embalming observations and so many funerals and such of funeral arrangements and things like that. If we get to the end of a semester and you're done all coursework, let's say you take lab in the fall, right? We get to the end of the fall semester and you're not done the embalming observation or whatever the case may be, but you've completed all the coursework, meaning the tests and papers, everything else, you'll get an incomplete for that class. Now the school gives us 3 months on that, and then they flip that grade from an I to an F. So anything you take in the fall, and we don't want you to stretch it out this far, we want you to get it done as soon as humanly possible. That clinical work can be done in the following semester. But again, we want it done in the fall semester, not in the spring. But worst case scenario, funeral home goes on a slow streak, whatever. And that's why they sort of allow us to do this, because funeral service in itself is very wonky in that it's either feast or famine, as I say. You're either very busy or very slow, and it tends to rarely be in the middle. So with tests in my class, I give no makeup exams. And again, I've had students who have had situations where I go, okay, I had a student whose daughter fell down, she had to get stitches. Like, okay, I get you. But if you just blow a test up, I'm not gonna give it to you. So it's important to keep that in mind. Now, when we get back to the fall, I'm still hoping to give my tests either in the testing center or on Blackboard, depending on how they budget us for the fall. Because with Blackboard, we have to use an outside monitoring group called HonorLog, which you log in and they watch you take the test. It's like an AI thing, but then there are actual people there that if there is an issue, they'll sort of get involved. So with my test, I just sort of do it, either, like I said, on Blackboard or in the testing center, just to save us time in the class. Now, tests themselves are not given for retention. Like I review my tests, but I don't let anybody keep them. I don't want them to take pictures of them. If we did that every semester, we'd have to change all of our tests, and it's surprisingly time consuming to write a new test. It takes a real long time. So we don't want all of our tests out there. I remember in college, it was fraternities that had like just filing cabinets full of tests. So I was like, oh, who do you have for macroeconomics? Oh, I've got their test for this, and this, and that's what we don't want. Program completion, this is an important note. Due to the evolving nature of funeral service, the American Board of Funeral Service Education, with our accreditor, they give us 1.5 times needed to complete the course. The course is the program, I should say. What that means is, let's say you leave, and it happens, life gets in the way. I've had students that have gotten married or had a child or whatever, or just decided to leave the funeral industry for a while. If you leave and you're gone for more than 3 years, you have to start back at the beginning. And this is above us. This goes up to our accreditor and says, look, it's funeral service changes a lot. The testing changes, the practices change. So they give us that 3 years. So, I had a student who she completed almost everything except for 2 courses, but she was gone for like 7 years. And she had to start back at the beginning, and she was furious, and I was heartbroken, but I have a choice in the matter. It's outside of my hands. So I mentioned this, I hope this will not affect or impact anybody, but it's just something that we want you guys to know. All right, so the hepatitis B vaccination. One of the forms in there is the Hep B vaccination. It's something that we'll need everybody to fill out and send back to us. Basically, to be honest, I don't care if you have Hep B vaccination or not, but we need you to know that it exists. If you start working at a funeral home, by federal law, they have to make it available to you for free within 10 days. And it's a round of 3 shots. You get one, I think it's like 2 months later, you get another, maybe 6 months after that, you get the third. I think it's a good idea to get it, but like I said, I don't care whether they have it or not. But like I said, we want you to know that it exists and that you are entitled to it if you are working at a funeral home. Like when I started working at a funeral home, when I was doing my internship, it was an SCI funeral home. So that's Service Corp International, if you're not familiar with it, with the initialism, but they do everything by the book, and they never offered it to me. I came home from school one day, or went to work, and I was like, hey, why don't you guys make this available to me? And like, oh, we forgot about it. Like they just legitimately forgot. Like it was not something they were thinking about. So they're like, yeah, and they set it up, and I went and got the vaccination. So like I said, we need to know that you know that it exists and it's something to which you are entitled. So registering with the state board, again, this has to be done to enroll in the day classes. This is primarily, well, 2 reasons. Number one, lab and field experience. Lab, I can't even take anybody physically into the lab unless they are registered as an intern or student trainee. Because we are considered a mortuary by the state of New Jersey. So it'd be the same thing as going into a funeral home, just going in and watching an embalming. Now, both lab and field experience have clinical work. As I was mentioning earlier, you have to do some funerals and bombings, etc. The second reason we split the classes up is that they move at a different pace. If you are in FU1 247, which is embalming 1, that's a theory of embalming class, it moves at a much more rapid pace. If you are familiar with with embalmings and the instruments and the techniques and everything else, it just moves at a much faster rate. All right, so that AQC, or Pre-Professional Educational Certificate. One of the things they point out, and again, I don't know why the state does this, when you go to get this, they send you to a teacher certification site. Why? I don't know. This is what the one for New Jersey looks like. And so I just don't want to throw you off if you're scheduling to get this done. And Pennsylvania is the same, similar. It's the TIMS, TIMS login for instructors for educators. I don't know why they do this. But anyway, it's like I said, it's just something we want to bring to your attention. Otherwise, when people log in, like, what the hell am I looking at here? All right, so requirements, and we'll deal with these in class for lab and field experience. That's that Wednesday afternoon class. What we'll need is we'll need a yellow application form that we'll have you fill out, and there'll be a section for your preceptor to fill out, that Hep B survey, an intern card. Now, actually, I should probably take that off there. We just sort of get that from the website anymore, from the state's website. For a while, New Jersey even stopped issuing cards. And we'll need an inspection report done at the funeral home. We'll need to do an inspection at the funeral home, and I'll explain all this in the first day of class. This takes about 5 minutes. This is just something to satisfy the accreditor. This has nothing to do with the state board or the school. This goes up to the American Board of Funeral Service Education. Makes it nationwide. Any place where a student is working, you're giving them credit for it, you have to make sure that they're in a safe environment, which again is a fair enough request. Anymore, we do it after 2020. Prior to that, we have to physically go out there. Now we just do it on Zoom, and I'll send a link out that first week of class, and we can get it done pretty quickly. But it's just something that I want to bring to your attention. So here's what that. And again, if you look in the handbook, all of this is in the handbook. However, we'll give copies of them to you in the first day of class. This is the application for field experience and lab. And like I said, section for you to fill out, section for your preceptor to fill out, because again, we'll be working with the funeral home to give you credit for what you're doing at the funeral home. And this is what the inspection form looks like. Actually, I might make a slight alteration to this by the fall, but I'm just thinking about adding like one extra line on there. And again, straightforward stuff, something you'd fill out, hand to me, or to Professor Allergist, or to Janine, and like I said, we'll arrange to do the inspection. And here's what that Hep B form looks like. Straightforward, I have it. And if you do, call your doctor and just ask them for a confirmation of it. They'll send it to you. They can email it to you in most cases. Or I don't want it, or I'm in the process of getting it. And again, straightforward stuff. All right, scholarships. Now, there are a million scholarships out there. And the number one complaint that I get from these groups is that they don't get enough applicants. And this has been going on for years. When I was in school, there was a student that was doing, I forget the organization he was doing. He was doing a report on them, and he called them up, and they said, look, we have, a scholarship here that nobody's applied for in like 8 years. If you send in an application, would probably almost like guarantee that you'll get it. So he did, and they mailed him a check for 13 grand. That's atypical, but that paid for, and again, this is 20 years ago, so it was well more than his entire schooling at Mercer. So yeah, there's a ton of scholarships out there, and if you guys are applying for them, please feel free to reach out to myself or another faculty member if you need a letter, if you need confirmation that you're in the program. We love to see you guys get these things, so please apply for them. Like I said, more lists of them. Here's a list of the textbooks. Actually, I think I need to update this one on the embalming history, theory, and practice, because a new version is about to come out. I'm not sure it's going to be out in time for the fall semester. So we give it to you now. You can buy them in the bookstore, or if you want to find them online, if you want to find them, I see people selling them on Facebook, like that Embalmers Who Care group. It's quite frequently I'll see people selling their books. If you don't get the latest edition of a book, it's normally not the end of the world. Now, like the History of American Funeral Directing, that was first published in 1957. I have a second edition of that, which was published in 58 or 59, and a student found it and brought it in and gave it to me, and I compared it to the modern text. It's not that much different. So like the old history book, yeah, it's fine. Now, with the embalming book, with embalming history, theory, and practice, I wouldn't go past the third edition on that. I wouldn't go to the second or first. Even with the third edition now, it's, I'd probably try and keep it like the fourth or fifth. And if the sixth is out on time, but we'll see. That's they're trying to get this thing out, and we'll see what happens by the fall semester. But we get that list in case you want to start tracking these down now. Now, likewise, if you go, once you're registered for classes, if you go to the school's website, all of the syllabi are listed on the website. So if you're taking Intro to Funeral Service, you can go to the school's website, put in a search, FUN 206, which is the course number. Boom, it'll bring you right up to a page that has the syllabus right there. You can take a look at the syllabus, you'll know exactly which books you need for that class. And the other thing I would like to point out is that I have had students rent books. It saves you a couple bucks, but the downside to that is you need these textbooks when you go to get ready for the licensing exams. So if you turn them all back in May, and now you're trying to get ready for a licensing exam, you don't have these books anymore, it can be problematic. I mean, you can always go to the library and just sort of sit down and look at them there. But again, in my opinion, it just makes more sense to buy them and then sell them off later on. That's sort of my feeling on it. Oh, and the next appendix, this is, we're not going to test you on this day one, but this is one of the more difficult things in the whole of the curriculum. I wish they would remove it from the curriculum altogether, but they don't. This is the anatomical guides and limits and the linear guides. So this tells you where all vessels are located, right? So you're looking at the common carotid. The anatomical guide is posterior to the medial border of the sternocleidomastoid, which again, that puts you into this area where it is. Then the anatomical limits show you where it starts and where it finishes. And then the linear guide, that LG, is if you were to draw an imaginary line over top of it, where would it be? We just give this to you now because it is so darn complicated. And this goes through all of the vessels for embalming and for embalming purposes. And you're going to get tested on this in embalming lab, embalming 1, embalming 2, restorative art. It pops up a lot. So we give it to you now. You're not going to walk in day one, get a pop quiz on it, but we just want to give you some of the more difficult materials now. Oh, I need to update this on my slides. And Jeannie, we need to update this on the website too. If you go to our website, we have to give you our all these stats: how many people graduate on time, how many people pass the national board exam, how many people were enrolled each year, all this good stuff, how many people are employed in funeral service, how many people didn't finish the program, all that good stuff. So yeah, if you go to our website, that's all there. This is just an older image that I had. I just haven't updated this. But again, just letting you know, if you're looking for information about the program, it's all there. And you can find all of this on the American Board of Funeral Service Education's website as well. And that is it. All right. I was waiting for this to catch up to me. Good questions? All right. That's all I have for you.
Mike, there are a few of them probably still need to be registered for the fall.
Yeah, I think so. And normally, traditionally, what we would do to bring you guys, what we would do is we bring everybody out, we do an orientation, I would have you fill out the form, and then we just register everybody that day. We obviously can't do that in this type of a format. So if you haven't registered already, let me know and we can get you registered. I'm looking at the names. I've met with the vast majority of you. And so if you haven't been registered, let me know. We'll get you registered. Now, one of the things to point out with registration is we lock down all the funeral service courses. So and we do that in case somebody has an elective. Let's say you're in the nursing program, you need 3 credits. You go, oh, well, maybe I'll take embalming lab. That sounds fun. We can't do that. We just can't have that. So we lock them all down. So when you're ready, let me know. We'll get you registered. Janine registers everyone, and then you'll get an email from her. But by default, it goes to that Mercer email. Now, if you don't pay for the class, or at least make a payment within 24 hours, and normally they do this thing first thing in the morning. So even if you were registered at 3:30 in the afternoon, by like 5 or 6 the next morning, the computer system wipes everybody who hasn't made a payment. If that happens, don't panic. Just let us know. We can get you re-registered. Janine, are they still doing that? Is it because I haven't dealt with that issue in I'll say like a year. Have you heard anything about them changing that?
It's very random. It's not consistent. So I know that they deregistered. I noticed some people on the 4th of August. So it's very random.
Okay. All right. Easy enough. Just bring it to everyone's attention. That happens. Don't panic. It's all right. And actually, once you've been given the approval to go into one of the funeral service classes, it's what they call a granted petition. That's what you need. Once that's happened, even if you do get dropped, you can register yourself again for the class once that petition's been issued. But if you need our help, just reach out. We'll get you in.
Yeah, from what I see, there's just 2 people on this Zoom that haven't been registered yet.
Okay, great. Well, if that's the case, like I said, reach out. I'll double check my notes and we'll get you set. Sorry, I just heard some banging outside. Kids got into something. I don't know. All right, good. Anyone else? I don't want to cut anyone off if you have a question or anything like that. All right. Good. Well, Janine, thanks for joining us. And I'll look to hear from there's other 2 that need to get registered, and we'll get you guys started. All right. We're going to cut it off in 3, 2, 1. All right. There's nothing. Then everyone enjoy the rest of your summer. And like I said, if you are looking for this info, I'm going to post it up onto the YouTube page, which is just MCCC Funeral Service Program. And you're welcome to look at it. I'll have all the links there as well. So, all right. Take care, everyone.